Hello friends and welcome back to MSFS Flight Plans. I'm Nick, your ever eager and not even remotely professional tour guide and host. And my job, at least in my opinion, is to keep you in the skies by exploring some of the coolest locations on Earth and encouraging you to check them out for yourself. Today we're going to be heading south, where spring is turning to summer, while we all start unpacking our holiday decorations up here in the northern hemisphere. We're going to be chilling out down in Santiago, the capital city of Chile, which looks unbelievably good, as you're about to see. And after we're done there, we're going to cruise over to check out the coastal city of Valparaiso and its very nice looking port. And it's going to be a decent trek of about 120 miles in total, but you can see I pulled our luxury rocket out of the hangar here, so I think the old Vision Jet's going to make pretty quick work of the 40 miles or so between those two cities. And I think I've got everything configured properly, so all we got to do is turn her on and away we'll go. And obviously it goes without saying that this plane is not really what we would typically make our first choice for what we usually do on this channel, which is low and slow sightseeing. But it had been quite a while since I'd flown this thing, and I really, really like it, so we're going to make it work. It had been so long, in fact, that I didn't realize that they had made the tablet interactive, which is how you get those headphones off the glare shield here. And so I was just clicking and clicking and clicking like crazy. I thought I remembered the little thing that removed those being down here, which it was, and now it's not. And before, the tablet wasn't interactive, so it didn't do anything when you clicked on it, but now that's how that works, if you also haven't been in this plane in a while. Alright, you can see we're going to, I've already got set for us, our initial altitude will be 3,800 while we're over Santiago, because we're at 1,800 now, so that'll give us about 2,000 feet, but we're going to head over some mountains, so we're going to have to get up to about 10,000 feet while we head out to the coast, which will be great, because then we can just light the afterburners for this thing and hop right over there real quick. Alright, parking brake off, and let's get going. So this airport is called El Bosque, and this is not the big international airport here in Santiago. This one's on the southern fringe of the metropolitan area, and there were no add-ons of any type available for this, but once you see the video description you'll see that I linked, I don't know, 10 to 12 freeware add-ons. All of them are freeware, which is great. Most of them will be for the landmarks in Santiago. Most of those are skyscrapers, which helps an already good default city look even better. And there's a stadium or two, and then the port down by the coast, which should look amazing. I haven't seen the port yet with the add-on, and I also threw in an add-on for the big international airport here, which we're going to take a flight over as we head towards the mountains. And I thought that the default airport looked pretty good, but apparently reading the video description for the guy that made the mod, it sounded like he was saying that maybe the default in the sim wasn't completely built out, because maybe they're rebuilding the airport or something. And he said he put some of the old buildings back in, so we'll take a look when we fly over and see if it looks any better than the default, which again looked pretty good on its own. I just left it with the clear sky setting because initially I had the live weather on and it looked about like this out here in Santiago, but once we got over to the mountains to the west, on the other side of the mountains, right on the other side of the mountains, there were fog banks that were so thick I could not even see the ground, even at about 3,000 feet, so we had to clear those out. Alright, let's get our landing lights on. Everything else looks good. Our flaps didn't activate for some reason, so let's get those going. Alright, let's do this. And as you're going to see, this whole city is just surrounded by mountains. It's right up against the edge of the Andes, which make the whole eastern border of the country of Chile. Our speed bugs on? Let's turn them on, just so we know when to rotate, though we could probably figure it out on our own if we had to. And once we level out at 3,800, I'm going to try to get the cruise speed down to about 150 knots. I think that'll be pretty good for what we're doing out here. We don't want to fly over it too quick. Alright, wheels up. And flaps up. And once we hit the end of the runway, I'll turn on the autopilot. Yeah, you can tell those are all default buildings down there, but like every other South American city that we've flown over, it looks good. Alright, autopilot on. Nav. Vertical speed. And we'll climb at about 1,300 feet a minute. So as you can see by our compass there, we're heading almost due south right now. And in just a minute we're going to turn and start heading north, which is where the big part of the city of Santiago is. And while we're on our way up there, I'll tell you a little bit about the city and the country of Chile. If you've ever looked at a map of South America, or even a globe, you probably know that Chile is enormously long, about 2,000 miles long from north to south. and it stretches about halfway up the continent of South America. And Santiago here is situated, if you can see something that shows kind of like what the vegetation looks like from space, this is right about the midpoint of the country, right where it transitions from desert up in the northern half to more temperate tropical like this, and of course way down south it gets like a tundra, like Arctic or Antarctic, I guess. And it kind of reminds me, though not quite as densely packed as Mexico City. Once we turn around here, you're going to see just how vast this area is. And it's quite old too. And because it's so old, it's had the time to build up a pretty decent sized population. If you can believe it, this is the 7th most populous city in the Americas, with just over 6 million residents. And if you're curious about how that sizes up with big US cities, only New York City has more people than this place. In America anyway, North America. Well, let's just say the United States. Alright, let's slow way down. We don't want to get up to 300 knots while we're 2,000 feet above the deck. So I think before my test flight I was at about 36, and that kept us in about the right zone. So the most populous city in the Western Hemisphere in North and South America is Sao Paulo in Brazil, and I found that surprising. I knew that place was big too, land-wise, but I didn't know there was 12 million, around 12 million people out there, which is a lot. And if you'd like to take a stab at what number 2 is, I'll give you a second. It's Lima, Peru. And the name Santiago was also a bit of a surprise to me as far as where that came from. Apparently it's a nod to James, who's the patron saint of Spain, whose name could also be said as Diego, Jaime, or Jacobo in Spanish. So I guess if you put San, which is usually saint, together with Diego, you get something that kind of sounds like Santiago. Definitely doesn't sound like San Diego, does it? As far as the climate goes down here, apparently it's quite dry, with almost all their annual rainfall coming in the winter months of May through August. And I read that the lack of precipitation with the huge population and the fact that it's tucked in this bowl right down here between all these mountains creates a bit of a smog problem. And they also have a bit of an earthquake problem. This is right along that Pacific Ring of Fire. And on the subject of governance, it's very much like the United States. They're now a full-blown democratic republic. But it hasn't always been that way out here. Up until 1980, this was a baked potato dictatorship. It was a military dictatorship. See, that looks good to me down there. I think that looks real nice. Very believable. Got some mines going out here. Or maybe they're just digging retention ponds. Those things are all over the place in Florida. Retention ponds everywhere. Everywhere it's flat, which is the entire state of Florida. But we can pull that throttle back even a little bit more, so we're going to do that. Alright, our first landmark up here is going to be David Arellano Soccer Stadium, home to the Colo Colo Football Club, which, from what I could gather, is the darling of Chilean sports. And just north of that, so the stadium's going to be right here, and just north of that, there's kind of a green space up here, and that is a college called the Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile, which is a very long name for any school. But we know those Catholics never shy away from extra words in their names. So we'll take a look at that. And this one is an add-on. And then right up here, you can barely see it now. There's a second stadium which also had a freeware add-on available at Flight Sim. But I didn't put it in for this one because I thought the colors looked a little bit unnatural. It was like super, super red in the bleacher area. And the default one that we'll see when we get up there looks very much like it really does from the satellite image. So I left that one alone. Boy, that looks like a convention center, doesn't it? It's not a logistics center because I don't see a bunch of trucks parked outside, but that has about the right shape. And it's probably not a mall because there's not enough parking around it. I'm going with convention center. Now, this is kind of neat. It looks like they dug a hole in the ground for the stadium, so they didn't really build the bleachers up along the sides. They kind of sunk the field down in there, or the pitch, sorry, if we're talking about soccer, which I'm sure we are. So there's the university out there, the Católica. And then here's the downtown area up here, the main downtown area. And all the darker looking buildings, just to let you know how many add-ons we've got out here. There's another one there. Most of the darker shaded ones are the add-ons. And this stadium here, which is the one that had the other freeware add-on that I didn't put in, is called the Julio Martinez Pradanos, which is the national stadium of Chile, hosting not only local sports but all kinds of other activities. Most interesting of which I found was mass imprisonment, torture, and execution following a military coup in 1973. And they're kind of building this all out right now because I don't know when this picture was taken for the satellite image, but they're about to host the 2023 Pan Am Games out here. That starts November 5th. So all this stuff, I think they've been building out for that. And I think they had some Paralympic games out there as well. But that looks pretty doggone good for a default in-sim stadium. Look, they even got the lights sticking up and everything. Wonderful. Okay, we'll just let this city speak for itself because it looks so cool and so good. But I'm going to tell you about these two big buildings that they've got out here because one of them at least is quite impressive. The taller of those two is called the Grand Santiago Tower, and that was completed fairly recently in 2013 at a cost of whatever the equivalent of around $1 billion US is. And that thing is 62 floors, and if the sun's hitting it just right, it's one of those really reflective buildings, so it looks a little bit funny now, but when the sun's hitting it just right, it looks more reflective than blotchy, which I think is the intention of that, but the sun is not hitting it right now. Another stadium down there. But that thing is 984 feet high, making it the tallest building in all of South America. And this one here is the Titanium La Portada, and that one was finished just 3 years before the other one, so they got to enjoy being the tallest around for just a little while. And now I guess it's kind of made irrelevant. Yeah, you can see these are all default, but there's so many of them, and the trees and everything down between them. Look at the detailing down here. It just looks really good. This golf course looks phenomenal. Golf course looks really good, actually. Look at that thing. And so right here, there's going to be two interesting features along the crest of this little hill. This thing is probably, I'm going to guess, a cistern for creating water pressure in the town because it's just an open air deal. Maybe that's the same thing there. But right over here, which we'll see better in just a minute, that's a big swimming pool, a community swimming pool. And that's all that's up there. There's just some little winding roads that go up there, and then there's that big pool on top of the hill, which I'm guessing probably makes it the highest elevation public urinal around here, I would think, because I don't see any other. There's a pool there, but it's not quite as high as that one. Well, that doesn't look quite right, does it? But that's how they go on the side of hills. We know that. All right, as we come around this here, the Capitol building for Santiago is really tucked down inside of all of these buildings, and I'm not sure if we're going to be able to see it from this side, but we're going to come down here, circle over here, because this is where they've got an Air and Space Museum, which we definitely want to check out because they have some planes outside. But I think we'll get a much better look at the Capitol from the other side. And right over here, there may be a little castle too. We'll see if we can spot that. It's the only castle and or fort on this flight, so we'll see if we can eyeball that. Another soccer field. And right out here is the campus of the University of Chile. I think that's where it is, because it was a big green looking square that was kind of opened up. And if you can see it, let's see, this thing right here is their National Fine Arts Gallery. And that building was built in 1910, but the art that they have on display was displayed obviously somewhere else starting in 1880, which makes it the oldest collection of its type in South America. Pretty interesting. So yeah, so this whole area here is the University of Chile. Pretty big complex. And I think their enrollment was around 40,000. And the annual tuition there is about 3.33 billion Chilean pesos. And I'm not going to tell you what the equivalent of that is in US dollars. I'll just make you feel just for a second like tuitions in the US are reasonable. I'll spoil a little bit by telling you they're not nearly as reasonable as what that converts to. And you can kind of tell this is a growing city. When we were in Mexico City, it didn't seem like there was nearly as much construction going on. Almost all of it was just super densely packed, little tiny shanties. So I'm guessing the per capita income out here, probably the employment is a little better. More soccer fields, 1, 2, maybe a practice soccer field there. Maybe another one out there. They're everywhere. Okay, so the grounds for the Air and Space Museum are going to be in this section right here that I'm drawing this little line around. And I don't know if they're building that out there, but this park that stretches from here all the way down there is called Cerrillos Park. And I'm not really sure what the significance of that is, but it's certainly big. Look at these mountains. Gosh, that's incredible. And it just completely surrounds the city. I mean, just look at the square mileage out here. Or hectareage, if you like measuring things in hectares. Okay, so what do we got down here? They got a couple little planes down there. If you have a big screen, you can probably make them out, a big monitor. There's their big plane. And when we look on the satellite map, they've really just got them all kind of stuffed in here. They look very haphazard, which seems weird because they have extra land, but I'll show you at the end. They're just really jammed in there. But a plane's a plane. And I'd definitely check it out if I was out here. It looks like they may even have a little bit of relief to them. At least that one does anyway. That one looks kind of flat. Yeah, they got some stuck over here. You can see a few down there. And they're just, those look like they're lined up. But you'll see at the end, it looks like someone spilled a bunch of airplane toys on the carpet and just left them piled up there. Man, this is a neat looking city. And I really like how you can tell the different residential areas out here. Again, in Mexico City, everything just looked like basically this. And maybe that's what it really looks like. I mean, it was jammed in back there. But they got different types of houses, different neighborhoods. Really, really neat. Geez, I wonder where these guys play soccer. Oh, there we go. There's a field right there. Yeah, I'm sure it drives up the real estate prices if you can be within walking distance of a soccer field out here. Alright, there's another gigantic horse racing track. I got plenty of those pretty much everywhere but the United States. I didn't realize that was such a big deal all over the world, but pretty much every city we've been to had at least one of those, some multiple. And we'll see another big one like that when we get down by the coast. Now that's what you call a wave pool. Look at that thing. That doesn't seem quite right. And this here is a huge public park, and they got all kinds of stuff in there. I couldn't even tell the name of the park because there were so many other things that had labels everywhere, and of course it's all in Spanish. But this thing right here in real life, the circular thing, has a big dome on the top of it, and it's called the Movie Star Arena, and I think that's a concert hall. And then this thing here is their aquarium, and up here in this little corner is an amusement park with all kinds of rides and roller coasters in it, but we really can't make any of them out here in the sim. But we'll check that out at the end too. And I think they got some children museums and maybe a science museum down there too. Alright, let's see. The Capitol building, where are you? It's right here. See it tucked in right there? And though that looks very defaultish, it kind of looks like that in real life. It's just a big square. And that used to be the Mint for Chile, where they made all the money before they converted that to the Capitol building. And right here is where our castle should be. So we'll see, even from space on the satellite map, it's kind of hard to see. There's a big retaining wall that goes around the outside of it. And it looks like maybe some ruins and a little pond up on the top. And then right down here on the very front is something that in real life looks kind of like an old school cathedral. But it doesn't look like that in the sim. It's kind of got a, that looks very defaultish. And that was built to defend the city of Santiago, but it never had to be defended, so they never used it for that. And that was in 1830, I think, is when they built that. And within about 50 years, they had converted it to a museum and an entertainment venue, which is what they're still using it for today. Yeah, that doesn't look anything like it does in real life. But if you want to check out a picture of that on the ground, it's pretty neat. And this thing, the footprint is about right. This is their fine arts museum again. But it has that kind of Gilded Age look to it with all that neat little detailing and intricacies that go into buildings like that. Alright, so we'll pick up the pace a little bit, and we got to get up to 10,000 feet to clear these mountains, so we'll go ahead and set that up, and we'll head on out to the airport, see what that looks like. And 10,000, okay. And we'll go ahead and adjust our vertical speed a little bit. I'll just cruise up at 500 feet a minute for now, because we don't want to get too far away from our airport. Alright, well that worked out okay. Felt a little odd going that slow in this plane, but we made it work. Alright, so here's the airport out here, and I think, yeah, we're going to take a left-hand turn, so we should get closer to it. You can see the tower sticking up over there. And it appeared from the thumbnails for the add-on that they did have some planes on display out there, and they definitely have some on display at the place we're going to be landing at. So we'll see what's up with that, see if we can see any of those. And this is called, this big one out here is called Arturo Merino Benitez Airport. Let's crank it up. You guys have to understand that seeing mountains like this just seems so foreign to me. We might as well be on another planet. I think the highest elevation in Florida may be a few hundred feet. There are no hills anywhere out here. Until you get up by Tallahassee. I think that region may be the lowest point of the Appalachian chain. That's where the very rolling foothills begin. And I read somewhere, and I should know since I lived in Tallahassee for 4 years, that I think they put the Capitol building, which may be the most phallic-looking Capitol building in the United States, on what at one time was the highest point in Florida. I could be wrong about that. If not, it's probably a top 5 highest point. Alright, let's see if we can see any planes or anything down there. I mean, it just looked so good, that airport did, in the default. I remember thinking to myself, wow, that looks good for default. I don't know that I'm going to see anything that's going to... Well, there we go. Everything just disappeared. It always slowly comes back to life. There we go. Let's see if we can see other planes out there. So if you didn't want to get up to 10,000 feet, little NavMap says we only need to be at 8,000 to clear these mountains here. But I'm going to take it to 10,000 because I'm going to see if we can get up to 250 knots. I don't see any static planes, but we may be too far away. And I don't have any of the ground traffic turned on at all, or the static aircraft. But I will add that when we get down to the port, I have the ships and ferries and the leisure boats cranked all the way up. Because I think the Addon's going to put a few transport ships and stuff in there anyway, but I want to see just how many we can jam in there. And on my test flight, yeah, I don't see any static planes down there. Alright, well, from this perch, it doesn't seem to be a huge noticeable difference from the default. Alright, so I'm going to go up to... Heck, I'm going to go to 2,000 feet a minute. Really turn this thing up. And we got about 40 miles till we get to the coast here. So, of course, I did bring my in-flight entertainment. Some more fun facts and trivia about the country of Chile. And on that first flight, I mean, it was so crazy. I talked about that rain shadow before, and I described what that is in our Argentina flight where we checked out that first big dune. And that was exactly what was going on out here with the live weather. Totally clear like this. You could see the tops of the clouds just starting to peek up over these mountains. And then right when you came over, super dense fog and cloud tops. So all that weather as it comes in from the coast, hits these mountains, dumps all its water out, and that's probably why they have such a dryness problem out here. Alright, fun fact number 1. Chile is home to the world's largest swimming pool, which you can see for yourself if you fly about 20 miles south once we hit the coast. And if I can remember to do it, I'll show it to you on a little nav map. I got it bookmarked. It is quite a sight. And that thing is over half a mile long, and it is right on the coast. It's like, it looks like 20 feet of beach and then this massive swimming pool, which looks like it's at some kind of resort complex. They said that thing holds 66 million gallons of water. So if you're into peeing in pools, first you can go back there and pee in probably the highest elevation pool around here, and then go pee in the world's largest swimming pool. Stick that in your scrapbook. And as mentioned before, and as we probably already know, Chile is a long country, but it is not the longest in the world. That title goes to Brazil, who beat it out by just 59 miles, which has got to be a real bummer for Chileans. And if I'm not mistaken, I don't think we saw any popping on these mountains either. We have really just been hitting grand slams of these mountains lately. And obviously those look really nice. You can see the water out here. And that's probably Valparaiso out there. So we're going to come out here and then cut down that way. This next little factoid is a bit sketchy, like all the facts I dish out on this channel, as the internet is a very dubious source of information at best. But I think when we were on that Namibia flight checking out dune number 7, which is the largest dune in the continent of Africa, I think I said that desert just north of that dune was the driest place on Earth. Well, Chile says they're the rightful owners of that title. The Atacama Desert, up on the northern end of the country, claims to receive less than 1 millimeter of rainfall annually. And it also claims to be the world's largest fog desert. I'm not sure what that means, but I guess if you can claim it, claim it. And if you like potatoes, you'll love this next one. Chile also claims to be the source of 80% of the global spud crop. I guess there's a bunch of islands about 600 miles south of here where they grow 286 varieties of those things. It's down by what they call their Lake District. And I had no idea that there was 286 varieties of taters. But they had some pictures of them. They got those purple ones, of course, the sweet potatoes, the regular potatoes, the little potatoes, creamer potatoes, I guess they call them. I just call those beef stew potatoes. They got them all here. And get a load of this one. Chile is the only government on Earth with a department specifically dedicated to UFO research. And you know I loved hearing about that one. Although I didn't think, which I definitely should have done, to look and see if they have like a database of incidents. But I guess we have to make the assumption that the government is sharing that information, which is the other half of that equation. Boy, these mountains look beautiful, don't they? And if we were any higher, I'm sure we'd be seeing some snow, because, yeah, look out that way. Ooh, man, look how tall those mountains are. And I think Chile also has the highest mountain in South America, somewhere along that Andes chain. I think I remember mentioning that in that Argentina flight. The most powerful earthquake ever recorded happened here in 1960 in the town of Valdivia, which is about halfway between here and Taterville. And that thing registered an incredible 9.9 on the Richter scale, killing around 1,000 people. So, of course, I had to look up the deadliest earthquake in history, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Let me get set up for our new altitude, which we'll get down to 3,000 once we get back over the coast. And we'll just get ready for that. So the deadliest, they think the deadliest earthquake in history happened in China in 1556. And they think, and I don't know how in the world they estimated something like this, but they think it may have killed around 830,000 people. The second place quake is much more recent in history, and that was the one down in Port-au-Prince in Haiti, down in 2010, or back in 2010. And again, based on which internet site you land on, they say that was anywhere between 100,000 and 300,000, which is a ridiculously huge range. So now you can see the only scenery defect I really noticed on this flight. They do have a seam running through here where there's a little bit more vegetation on this side of it, but if that's all we've got to complain about, I'm not going to complain at all. Alright, we'll throttle back, start coming on down. And I want to make sure that we are at the coast and at 3,000 feet when we get there, so we'll come down at 1,500 feet a minute and watch our speed. So this town we're flying over right now is called Limache, and as you can tell, it's mostly just agricultural. And you know when you're looking on the Google satellite maps, there's that little button that says things to do, then you can click on it, and if there's anything to do, it'll put some bookmarks down there. Well, I think this town right here might be the first spot of this size on any of our flights so far where literally nothing came up when I pushed that button. So unless you're into farming, probably not much to do down there. So there's the coast down there. There's our big port that we're going to check out. So we're going to come out this way. We're going to cut down here over this town, which has a really funny name, which I'll try to pronounce in just a minute. And then come over here, because our airport's going to be around here, but we got to check out this port, because that's going to look pretty cool. Come right back along the coast, and then that's when we'll come out for our landing. And in the sim, it told me this flight would be about 14 minutes, so obviously we've surpassed that at this point, I think. So this town here is called Quilpue. And the thing about that they had going on, the only thing and the things to do was a little tiny zoo, and I mean tiny. It's right on the other side of this mountain here, but it's so small you couldn't even tell it was a zoo on the satellite map, so we're just going to forego that entirely. But they said a lot of the people that work down here along the water at the resorts and casinos and all that, they'll live up here because it probably costs a heck of a lot of money to live down there, and they just commute to get over there. And speaking of expensive things, someone sent me an email comment earlier this week. Just a little bit of encouragement, which I always appreciate, and thank anybody who ever says, hey, good job, I'm having fun. And he said, I bet you spend a lot of money on this hobby. And I said, well, brother, probably not any more than you do, right? Kind of a poorly kept secret that those of us that are really into flight simming spend a good bit of money on this. But the thing about that is, for me, yes, I do spend a lot of money on it. Between the planes and my hardware, of course, the scenery out on packs, never really airports, as I mentioned before. But I don't spend a lot of money on anything else. I never go out to eat. I hate spending money on food. Talk about a zero return investment. Probably even negative if you think about all the fat we pack on eating that stuff. I don't drive an expensive car. I don't buy an expensive clothes. But I don't mind shelling out funds for the things that I enjoy doing in life. And like most of you guys, I dump a lot of funds in this. And if you're curious, while we have a minute before we get down to the coast, about the demographics of our channel, I felt very safe saying, hey brother, I spent a lot of money, because 99.9% of our viewers in the last 28 days are males, which probably doesn't surprise anyone either. And over 80% are over age 44. But we're at kind of that part of life where you're just looking for an escape from the stress of work and finances and family, and heaven forbid you turn the news on. And what better escape than this? So let's see, they got their obligatory soccer fields down there, of course. Once we come up over this, there's going to be another huge horse track. There's a little university up on top of this hill here. And then we'll be at all of our coastal sites. But that looks good too, doesn't it? Aside from that seam running right smack dab down the middle of that town. Alright, we got about 1,700 feet to go. Then we'll be at our new cruising altitude, our sightseeing altitude. And you can already start to see some of the ships out here. Look at that gigantic thing there. You can see some sitting out here. So I think these bigger ones are part of the add-on pack. But once we get around this point here, you're going to see a lot of little ships that I think are the injected ones. And as you can see, so far anyway, it's not causing any performance issues at all, which is very rare. And you'd think this plane with all this glass would chew up performance, but it doesn't seem to be. Man, I love this plane. It's so cool. The last time I really spent a lot of time in this cockpit was when I was doing career mode. It was one of the early planes I got as I was just trying to complete the missions quickly to build up to larger planes. And I flew this thing everywhere. Mostly in South America, actually. Alright, we're going pretty quick. So let's slow way down again. And we're about to level out anyway. So let's see, our airport is going to be right over here. I think this is the strip going right along here. And the big airport for this area is right out here. It's right along the coast. And you may want to fly over this airport because they have a big display area just to the west of the airport with all kinds of planes out there. And I bet they have them in the add-on, which of course we probably won't be able to see once we're down there flying right over it. So if you want to check that out, you may want to fly over it and head over to that one. It's only about 3 miles away. Alright, so here's Valparaiso. And then there's the university there, there's their big horse track, there's a college soccer stadium, and there's a big channel that runs right through the middle of town here, and most of the year it's probably dried up, and you can see the only water in it right now is right in here, which is also accurate for whenever the picture was taken for the satellite map. But I bet during the rainy season that thing is just a freaking torrent, because look how wide it is. And during the dry months they use it as a parking lot. You'll see at the end that it's just filled with overflow parking for cars. And right down here on this corner, on this side of that channel, this is a huge casino. And that little house right there is the president of Chile's summer retreat. So I guess kind of the equivalent of what Camp David would be here in the US. Although I'd probably want to go to that place if I had my choice. This place, not Camp David. We are going to see some popping because, look, we got drop-offs here. And that's just what happens. That pier didn't come out very well, did it? But look at that property there. Wow. And then right here, and that does not look accurate, there's a giant Sheraton hotel right there too. It's much bigger than that little default thing they stuck in there. Alright, let's get ready to see all our ships. Okay, yep, you can see the loop that we're going to take here coming around. We should get a great view of everything. So this little suburb here is called Ancho, or Playa Ancha is what that is. And there's a university right down here, a very small one, and a big stadium where the Santiago Wanderers football club plays. And I can't help but wonder if they call them the Wanderers because it's about a 90-minute drive to Santiago from here. And we're going to have some military ships along this pier, and I think this might be a naval academy right here. And they've got a little maritime museum, which I'll show you in just a minute. I'm guessing we're going to get some more popping up here because of the cliffs, but look at all these little boats out here everywhere. Look at that thing. That looks amazing. Really cool. And I don't know what this big dirt thing is here. It's called a parque of some kind, so they use it as a park, and that's what it looks like on the satellite map too, but I'm wondering if they use it for parking for that stadium, because I don't see any other big asphalt spots anywhere. And you know what's so crazy? You also don't see a lot of this in the US. Think about how many fields we have seen right along the water in all these different countries. Up by Naples there was some that were like that. Well, I guess in Boston, out over those harbor islands, there was that high school football field right on the tip of an island. But look at all this stuff. That one looks like it's about to slide right into the water, doesn't it? And what do you think that is? That's obviously not a soccer pitch. That's way too skinny. Maybe just a putting green? Yeah, we're getting a lot of popping here. But that's what happens. Alright, their Maritime and Naval History Museum is this thing right here, up on the top of this hill, and it kind of looks like a figure 8 once we get over it, with square sides on it. And this port does look good. Look at all those cranes. That is a huge transport ship there. Ooh, we've got a cruise ship. I like when that happens. Gigantic tanker. And what the heck is that? Is that a battleship? Surely the Chilean Navy didn't have a battleship. But, you know, a lot of these second world countries get a lot of hand-me-down ships, so they can haul that thing around the horn and lob a few shells at Brazil for taking their 59 miles of country length away from them. That looks like a battleship, doesn't it? I don't remember seeing one in the satellite map. Most of the ships on the satellite map, they were all military ships, and they look like these things, whatever these are. I did not remember seeing a battleship, though. That's definitely what that appears to be. Man, this looks so cool out here. Alright, so we got to take a few points off for the popping. Get a few bonus points for really good default structure scenery. A lot of bonus points for no popping in the mountains. So I'd say right now we're probably at an A-. We'll see if we can spot any of the additional planes at this airport as we're coming in. And what you have to do to get lined up with this runway, actually it was more hazy the last time I was out here, but that little tower sticking up right there is your VFR landmark. If you get that thing right between you and those runway lights, you know you're on course. Because it was so hazy before I couldn't really tell which direction the runway was going, but if you just come in right over that, you'll be in good shape. And this thing out here is another huge sand dune. If you didn't get enough of that on our Dune Stravaganza tour, you can fly out there and eyeball that thing. And then there's that other big airport out there. And I'm guessing there's probably an add-on for that, because that is the major airport. But man, think about how far you'd have to drive to get all the way around there back to downtown. But I mean, where else are you going to put it? Up in the mountains? And this runway here, obviously it's paved. I think it was 5,700 feet. That one there is closer to 8,000. So for some reason you need even more runway. You can get up there. All right, get our landing lights back on. Gears down. And let's put our landing speeds on. Go ahead and throw in one notch of flaps. So we talked about Sao Paulo being such a populous city at the start of the flight. Just this morning, I got a comment from someone who said he was from Brazil, and he said, come out and fly over Sao Paulo. Do what you do for those other cities. Do it in Sao Paulo and Rio. And I think we'll probably do that. Unfortunately, it's a little bit too long for a joint flight between Rio and Sao Paulo. I took the King Air out there a few months ago, and it took, I think it was over an hour, even in that thing, to get between the two cities. So we'll probably have to separate those out. But I'd like to fly over there again. And man, it was so beautiful. I flew in from the east, and it was sunset over Sao Paulo. Just looked beautiful. And while I'm thinking about it, what originally got me out here into Chile was that someone said I needed to go check out the Tierra del Fuego region, which is in the very, very southern end of Chile. And there's a little airport down there on the very tip of the continent that I'll try to remember to show you if you haven't been down there before. It was one of the coolest little airports I've ever taken off from. And there was snow everywhere. It was so cool. And the Tierra del Fuego region looked good. Last notch of flaps. But in between, there were some of those patches where there wasn't any satellite coverage, maybe. And it kind of had that blotchy looking appearance. So, airport was awesome. Tierra del Fuego was awesome. And there's some other airports right next to it if you just want to go check that out. But the flight out there had some issues. Alright, let's not stall. But just look at this area. So incredible. These mountains are just unbelievable. Look at the detailing down there. I cannot for the life of me remember the name of that other city north of here, just south of Central America maybe, that volcano tour we did. That was a cool airport, and I definitely want to go check out, I think it's El Alto in La Paz, Bolivia, which I think is the highest commercial airport in South America. That is a really cool area. We're definitely going to do a flight out there. Alright, we got just a little 2-knot tailwind. That's not going to be a problem at all. Oh, I think I can already see some planes up there. So the area where they should be on display should be everything to the left of these buildings here, but I'm thinking that might even be one out on the apron there. Or the parking area. And if one of you pilots know, something I've been thinking about lately, if you're not ever crossing 10,000 feet in altitude, like doing sightseeing like we usually do, are you supposed to keep your landing lights on the whole time? Or if you're staying under 10,000 and just flying around low, can you turn them off at a certain point? Let me know. I know we got a lot of pilots that aren't members, so hook me up with that info. Alright, we're way too high. Way too high. I hope I don't run out of runway here. That would be a real bummer. Alright, we actually almost wound up hitting the ref speed as we cross the gate, so that's good. So we've really been lucky with the add-ons lately too. I can't remember the last time we had to put a payware add-on in. But I am going to get one soon because I want to do that Onkavongo Safari Tour, if that's how you say that. Alright, flaps up. I did a little test flight out there without any mods whatsoever. And there's not a lot of elevation in the terrain. I mean, it looks like a big flat game reserve in Africa, which is exactly what it is. But supposedly they've got all kinds of animals. I think Parallel 42 made that. Oop, let's not hit that light. Oh yeah, we got some planes out here. Look at that. We got some helicopters. Oh man. And they've even got the Chilean Navy livery on them. Look at that. Very cool. What do we have over here? Well, we got pretty much one of every helicopter, don't we? I don't see any Chinooks though. Man, they've even got some on the other side there. Got their fire trucks in there. I like it a lot. Got the MASH helicopter over there. They got the windshields blacked out, don't they? Got the ramp open on that one. Boy, they left nothing to chance, did they? Oh, and look. They got the stuff on display over there. Okay, well, if you guys will humor me for a minute, I'm going to hop in the drone and just go check out what they got on display, because, man, look at that. They got a lot of stuff. That helicopter is perched in a precarious position, isn't it? How the heck did they balance that thing like that? Man, I feel like I should be paying extra money to look at that thing. That couldn't have been an easy effort, but it does look a little bit front heavy, doesn't it? Okay, let's get in the drone real quick. Let's go see what they got over there. Alright, oh gosh. Oh, I'm getting seasick. Okay, look at that. That couldn't have been easy. They got the prop tilted forward and everything. Oh man, that's not the Bronco, is it? Oh no, that's that Cessna pusher-puller. Ooh, they've even got one in flight, stuck up on a little pedestal there. They got all their choppers are kind of leaning forward a bit, aren't they? Put a bunch of sandbags up in the nose there. That's cool. Well, hello. Look at this guy. He's getting ready for the nighttime raves out there. Look at that. Looks like that one didn't quite get finished up. Got a little tour bus out here. Everyone's going to pile out here and look at the planes. Wow, this is really, really neat. There's a place in England, too, that looks like it's a little bit jagged, but they're probably not, most people aren't getting as close as we are. I can't remember the name of the airport in England that has a bunch of planes on display like this. Let me know if you know, because I'd like to go check that out. There's like a little military museum. Oh, man, please tell me we can go in that little hatch there. Well, you know I'm going to try it. I got the speed of my drone turned up a little bit high. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Okay, okay. Looks like they might even have some mannequins in there, but the window's blacked out. Oh, wow. Oh. Just a hair trigger. Ooh. Oh, boy. That guy's having a good time. Yeah, that's not good. All right, well, you're probably not supposed to go in there. All right. Let's take one more look at that. There it is. The 15th wonder of the aviation world. Getting that thing to balance like that. All right, let's pull over a little NavMap, and I'll show you some of the other sites around here. And let me hop in this plane and just turn it completely off so I don't have to listen to that. Probably should have done that at the start. Okay. You can see all the injected ships here in little NavMap. I don't remember seeing that many, but there was a lot of stuff out there, wasn't it? All right, first things first, let's look at that gigantic pool. So you can see that's pretty close to where we were there. That's about 20 miles from those 2 points. And look at this thing. Look at that. And I mean, it is right on the water. If they had a hurricane or even a strong wind here to blow some of that ocean in there, that thing would be done. They got a lot of big pools out here, don't they? So this guy was like, hey, come to our place. We got a big pool. And this guy was like, yeah, hold my beer. And then this guy was like, you guys are going bankrupt. I mean, because those are all huge pools. That's crazy. Oh, and there's a little airport there. So if you just want to see the pool, you can leave from right there. All right, before we come back to Santiago, let me show you that other spot down by Tierra del Fuego, because you want to check out that airport if you haven't been down here before. It's this one right down here. Ushuaia? I don't even know how to say that. Sierra Alpha Whiskey Hotel is the code for it. But this place is so cool. I mean, it just looks amazing. If you haven't left from that or landed there, you got to do it. And then Tierra del Fuego is up in this region here. But all of this pretty much in here, there was some issues with the rendering of the landscape. So unfortunately, we couldn't take that full flight unless we took off right from Tierra del Fuego, which maybe we will at some point. So Chile stretches all the way from this little bend right here down to the tip. I mean, it is long, as you probably know. And you can tell right where it starts to transition from desert, which may be the driest place on the earth, maybe not. Right down here to this little greener area is where the city is. All right, so we left from here, and if you wanted to take a few minutes off the flight, maybe you could take off from Arturo here and come down this way, but you want to make sure you catch that Space Museum. And here's our first site where the Colo Colo Football Club plays. And then here's the Catholic University. And where was that huge thing that we saw that I thought might be... Well, I just don't think that modeled correctly, but I think this was it. The thing that I thought might be a convention center. But look at that. What an odd-shaped building. What the heck could that be? Again, I don't think it's a mall because there's not enough parking, but that is a weird-shaped building. Look at the top of that. All right, well, let's not hang out there forever. All right, so here's the stadium that did have the freeware that I didn't put in because, as you can see, it looked pretty much just like that in the sim. The default did. And this should be all built out by now because they got the games rolling in here in just a couple weeks. And as we come to downtown here, this is the top of that huge building, the Gran Santiago Tower. And then here's the one that was the biggest for a couple years before they built that thing. Some more soccer fields. That golf course was beautiful. And then there's that swimming pool. Looks like they need to put a little water in there, doesn't it? And you know, I'm not seeing... I don't know why they made a river running down the side of that because I'm not seeing anything that looks like a river. You guys remember that thing that was running down the side there? I wonder what that was all about. Okay, the Capitol building, again, looks kind of like it did in the sim, just a big square, but they do have some gardens out there. And then here's that castle. So you can see where the outer walls went. Let's see how close we can get. The outer walls kind of running around here like this. They got a little, maybe a koi pond up there now. And then this thing here is where you can go inside and hold your events or maybe see whatever they have on display for the museum. Nice train yard that we really couldn't see because we were too far away. There's a huge horse track, and you can see the dome on top of the movie star arena there. And then here's that amusement park. Look at all that stuff they got down there. That is way too fine a detail to render in the sim. All we got was trees and a couple of these buildings. There's their aquarium and their loaf of bread. And that's kind of making my mouth water just looking at that. And then here's the university. I mean, that place is big. Look at that. Huge. That's the University of Chile. And what we all came to see, the Air and Space Museum. Look at these planes here. It's just thrown all over the place. Look at that. They got plenty of room out here. Why is everything all jammed up there? Stick a few more down here. Yeah, hey, we got a parking spot over there. Throw another one in there. Look at that. And I can't tell what all they got, really. I'm not good with plain silhouettes. It looks like that one's got the flaps ripped off. And just a fuselage of something there. But that's pretty cool, isn't it? All right, so the airport was what it was. Again, I didn't notice much of a difference, but if you land there and maybe do a drone flight around it, maybe the add-on put some stuff in there. I don't know. And then we came out here to La Manche, which was nothing but farms. And in this town, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, the zoo is right around here somewhere. But again, you can't really see anything with that. So here's that alternate airport if you want to come out here, right along the coast there. And that's maybe 5 or 6 miles from here to there if you want to do a flyover and look at that stuff. But it was a lot more fun to look in the drone, if you ask me. And then here's that big channel. Check this thing out. So you could, in the sim, it looked about like that. There was water up in the front of it, but it's really wide, which means they probably plan for lots of water to flow through that certain times of the year. And it winds all the way up through here. So I bet they do get quite a few gallons per minute running through that. But look at right now. Look at they're using it for parking lots. Interesting, huh? Oh, they got a little partay going on down there. Pull that neon plane back over there. Get that sucker flashing. Turn up the techno music. Have a good time. And then here's that casino, which didn't look anything like that in the sim, but you can tell that is a beast. And then here's the president's estate. Man, what a piece of real estate that is, huh? Good grief. And then here's that other huge hotel, which didn't look anything like that. And then we came over to the ports, which did look pretty good. And here's the Wanderers Stadium, and their big dirt, whatever that is. And another stadium there. And again, this is part of the university too, so I'm really wondering what they do there. And And I think this is part of the naval school. This is probably the naval base, because you can see that kind of comes up to their port here. And look, no battleships. Although they do have a, what is that, a cutter or a clipper? I think it's called a clipper. That's kind of cool. And then they had that port with those huge transport ships everywhere, and the cruise ship was right down here. And what's this, a ferry? Yeah, it looks like a ferry without any cars in it. So that was a pretty cool flight, guys. Liked it a lot. Not the best we've ever had as far as stuff to see, but with so much default stuff looking that good, I liked it a lot. Had an absolute blast, as always. I think I'm going to jam in a couple of short hop flights. There were some interesting natural features in a couple different parts of the world I was skimming over recently, so we may do a short hop or two for those. And then we may head out to Sao Paulo. We'll see how it goes. Can't wait to see y'all again in the skies. Later.